Hi everyone, today we have Ayush joining us today. And so we'll just have a quick rapid fire introduction. So, first of all, what school and high school board do you have right now?
Yeah, so I go to TISB, which is the International School of Bangalore. I did IGCSE in 10th, 9th and 10th, and then IB in 11th and 12th. So
Okay, cool. And so, what college are you gonna go to, and what's the year of graduation from that college?
I just got into, I committed early decision to the University of Chicago, and I'll be graduating in 2028.
Cool. And so, what major are you gonna do?
My intended major is economics and data science.
Got it. And what were some of the other colleges that you were planning to apply to? I know you had to withdraw because of ED, but what were some other ones on your list?
I applied a couple of EAs along with the ED, which was like UMich, USC, as well as all the UCs, because those were all due before the ED result came out. And then, of course, like for my RD round, I had a couple IVs like Columbia, I think UPenn as well, that I was planning to apply to. Obviously, didn't get there, but yeah.
So something like economics and data science is becoming more common these days, but what are some of the fields and career prospects that one would have after doing a major in them?
Yeah, I think it's like the most up and coming field.
Yeah.
It directly leads to data analytics in a lot of cases. Even some people take another road, which is investment banking, of course. And that's more of like the business and finance side of it. I'm leaning towards trying to break into maybe tech and become a data analyst or
And so now moving on to the academic side. First of all, how challenging was school, both IG and IB, and were there any systems you had in place to effectively ace both of them?
obviously the IBDP curriculum is like one of the most rigorous, if not the most rigorous high school program. IGCSE, it was not so bad. I think now it's like you have a lot more subjects. So of course, in IGCSE, it was important for you to manage each of those subjects individually in order to ensure that you don't like drop in any of them, which was the most important part of that. Doing past papers was a great way for me, and that was like the main thing that I did in IGCSE was leading up to the board exams was just past papers because it helps. And I think TISB does a really great job as well of preparing students both in IG and IBDP. Obviously,
Right.
IB, you have all these submissions to do, which makes it a lot harder because there's a multitude of skills that you're developing at the same time, not just studying and rote learning, but like also research skills, etc. So for those, I feel like the most important is to nail like your I's and E's early on because the biggest waste of time that I saw in like my friends as well as me is like having to redo an entire I or EE, which did happen to many people. Like if your teacher doesn't like how your I is turning out, they may just say, please try another topic, which obviously like is difficult, especially in the last minute when you have big exams coming up. It's difficult to go back and change the whole thing. So trying to make sure that you have the right topic and not like stifles creativity to say this in a way, but the I's and E's aren't like an opportunity to show how brilliant and like excellent you are, but instead
Right.
try to avoid mistakes, right? So like if you can see what topics have been done before and take a spin on one of those, I think that's like the best shot that you have because otherwise you do end up going down the wrong path sometimes.
With respect to both these boards, would you mind sharing your scores and in the case of IB or PG?
In IGCSE, I did get all 9 A stars. And my PG TISP does it out of 44, as I'm sure you know. I got a 43 out of 44. And of course, my boards are yet to come. So
Okay, cool. And so what were your subjects and or what are your subjects in IB?
my subjects are economics, physics, and math HL, math AAHL, sorry, and chemistry, French ab initio, and English language and literature SL.
How are you able to manage your time effectively, especially with IB that has so many other components apart from the subjects and ECs, applications, all this stuff? So, what do you do to really stay on top of everything?
Obviously going through material in your own time is like extremely important even when there aren't exams. Sometimes like doing questions on your own and doing past papers is a great way to like solidify the concepts the day of learning them or a week after. So like reading through the textbook after class or before even to like make sure that you can understand concepts that you missed out on because obviously everyone has their strong suits and their weaknesses, right? So you don't want to try and do the same thing that everyone else is doing because you may be very different. So if you manage your time well, I think following a routine is what got me through IB the most. Like, make sure that you go to the gym or go outside and play to do something to get yourself active.
Can you just give us like a brief timeline of how you approached IB? Like approximately by when were you done with your IAs? Like if the first draft also, or by when were you done with your E and stuff like that? And then when did you
Yeah.
start your application work? And
It varies from subject to subject. I think I got pretty lucky in the way that, like, in the sense of my IAs got approved well and like done early on. So chemistry, I know that like my first draft was fine pretty much, and I had minor changes to make, but besides that, it was settled upon by summer of 11th
okay,
grade. So that was a real chemistry, as well as even physics was done pretty early, but math, for example, I was doing until 2 months ago or 3 months ago, as well as my
okay.
EE, which is in my EE is in math as well. So both of those took a while to do.
Oh
And
wow.
but I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, trying to stick to TISP's deadlines is like a great way of staying ahead because they sort of keep their deadlines really early, right? I'm sure you know. And in the moment, it's like extremely irritating. Like, you
Yeah.
you feel like your teachers are going way too early, and even the final submission was a month and a half or 2 months before they actually submitted to IB. But in hindsight, I feel like it helps a lot because they know they've done this a lot of times and they know when you need to study for other things, when you have your hands tied with other applications, etc. So I think if you follow TISP's deadlines, you should be good.
Apart from the IB and IG, did you take any AP courses or external exams like that?
Yeah, so I did take two APs. I took one in statistics and I took one in computer science A, which is applications. I got a four in both of those, which is like, I feel it did help my application. I know that like TISV is quite
Yeah,
outwardly against, yeah, like they're quite against APs. And I think even teachers recommended that I don't do them. But since I was passionate about data science, I really wanted to try and explore topics outside of IB, which was in statistics and computer science. If you're not, it's not required to do APs at all. I just felt like it couldn't hurt, and like since I had the time and I managed my time well, I think I followed like by getting a four in the APs, it was far easier because I just had to have an understanding of the basic concepts, right? And that like helped me do it. So if you're planning on doing those, I'd advise like you don't try and shoot for the stars and like spend a lot of time on APs because that will take away from how much you can study in IB. But trying to like get that basic, like that saying that you spend 20% of effort to get 80% of the results and 80% of effort to get the
right,
remaining
right.
20. I think I really follow that because like getting a four by like just reading a textbook here and there is like it was pretty quick to me.
So when do you actually give these in 11th grade or ninth or one?
I gave them both in 11th in May.
Okay.
I
And what about standardized testing? Did you give the ACT, SAT?
I gave SAT. I got
Did you
1530.
did you end up giving multiple attempts and then super scoring or
I did have multiple attempts, but I ended up my best attempt was both from one
okay,
exam. So I got like a 790 in math and a 740 in English. So I just left it at that. And I think it's important also that like you gauge because some people do get like 1510, 1520, 1530, and they're like not entirely happy with it yet, which is something that you shouldn't focus too much on. Personally, I think that colleges don't nitpick about like 30, 40 points here and there in the SAT and ACT, or sorry, ACT with its own point system, but past certain amounts, like obviously 34 maybe in ACT, or sorry, yeah, 34 and maybe 1500 in the SAT, you shouldn't kill yourself over it because it
right?
does take a lot of effort to relearn and re-prepare for the.
Yeah. And so how did you actually go about preparing for it? And if you have any advice for that?
I found math was fine. So math I did by myself, but English I took help from a tutor for like a month and a half before the SAT exam. Even just for practice, I don't think it's necessary to get outside help, but it does help because they have the resources sometimes and they have the ability to make you actually sit down and do the 55-minute, or sorry, I'm not sure what it is now with the online. I took the physical 4-hour test. So it was hard sometimes to sit for like
Yeah.
60 minutes plus the reading, writing, everything. So
And so now moving on to extracurriculars. Obviously, one of the key questions is what extracurriculars did you do and which ones did you think really made you stand out? Like, what do you think your X factor was in the eyes of an admissions officer?
I did two research programs. One was with SRA, which was in going to 11th summer, and then
Yeah.
one was Pioneer, which was in 11th going to 12th summer. So these sort of, it's more about building your story. Like in a lot of essays, you want to really like highlight how you got into it. Even in the activity section, highlighting what you did, and like this really shows them that you're interested in what you do. So obviously SRA was first, and so since I love research so much and I found that out by doing the program, it was an easy segue for me. And I immediately knew that I wanted to take another research program the next year. There was no doubt in my mind. So that helped me like maybe stand out in some ways by writing two research papers. It like showed that I like to pursue my own answers. I think like that was another thing that showcased in my profile, like that I search for my own answers.
Apart from these, did you do any internships or do any Olympiads, any competitive exams, anything like that?
Olympiads, I think I did a couple earlier on, but I didn't end up doing any in the later, like 11th and 12th. I did do two internships. One was at NGO and one was at a VC firm. So I had to say one thing about them is that like they helped me tremendously with just like soft skills as well. Like this wasn't just for college applications. Of course, it like helped, but it was really nice to work in that like office environment. It was actually a great way to like
Right.
apply what I learned, especially because in both of them I was a data science intern. So I really got to apply like the AP knowledge that I learned from outside of
Ah,
school.
okay. And so how did you go about organizing these internships?
I think unfortunately, like at a high school level, it's pretty difficult
Right,
to
right,
get internships by yourself. Like connections is like the main way that you
right.
can get it. So one of them was like a dad's friend, and my mom works with the NGO. So that was the way, that was how I got these internships, which is, I think obviously you can write like an email, but a lot of them just go cold, and a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
them do have a policy like they don't hire high school interns, even undergraduate interns, right? Like they don't, even first years, second years sometimes.
What about social work? And yeah, so apart from the internship at the NGO, did you have any social organizations, any other social work that you did?
Yeah, I did. I had a main thing that I wrote my Common App essay about actually, which was about like the underprivileged and underemployed people in India. So I had financial literacy drives as well as soft skilling. So these were like two branches of the same sort of like parent initiative. So basically, in the financial literacy drives, I went to local communities in my area, and I sort of spoke to them about how to manage their money and how to like enroll for government schemes. And these government schemes give like government benefits, pension schemes. It gives them all sorts of like,
Right,
it gives
right.
them access to like employment opportunities as well. And so I think this tied with my soft skilling, which was like going through people's resumes. I'm fluent in English, right? So it was like easy to help them prepare for interviews as well.
And so did you find that people were actually enrolling in these government schemes?
The main reason I started it was because one of my helper's sons had an engineering degree and he still couldn't find employment. So this was like the aha moment for me that there was a
Ah,
need for
okay.
this, and he did end up finding a job in a company after. So yeah, it was nice to see that people derive these programs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you mentioned your research programs in the summer. So I was just wondering when you did the internships and this social project, was it during the winters or some other breaks?
Yeah, one of them was during the winter, which was like it was November-ish to February. I think it was like that one was a long internship. The other one was during the summer. The year where I had Pioneer. Pioneer actually starts quite late and it goes like a month into the school year. The first part of summer I was able to do in the first part of 12th grade summer, I was able to do
Ah,
the
okay.
internship.
This last question for the section would be about your honor section on your application. So what exactly did that look like?
The honor section is like difficult to fill out, I think, many students, including me. I had a couple. I've been playing tabla for a long time.
Oh
So
wow.
I've been playing tabla for like close to 14 years. So after I finished eighth grade in tabla, I taught children as well. So I had a certificate to teach. So I put that. I also put, I think, one Olympiad maybe from earlier on. I think maybe state level. I played badminton as well as I played football for my school. Football for school didn't go into honors, but yeah, the honors were difficult to fill out. And I think it's also like geared towards US students a lot of the time because
Right,
they do
right.
have more opportunities. I think even a lot of students did put their IGCSE ICE certificate, which is like
Right.
which you get for like completing all the kind of like domains of IGCSE itself. So if you run low on that, you can always add that in.
Another question in this section would be leadership positions. How are you able to show colleges your leadership, and what positions do you actually take up?
One of the thing was I had school involvement in the form of being the college counseling prefect. So that involved like hosting university fairs and communicating, liaising, everything with all these representatives. So that in its own way, as well as guiding younger children and all of that, all of the duties accompanied with the role, as well as I did another social initiative by myself, which was book drives with Rotary Foundation. So that, and I taught kids. So those were like separate things that help showcase my leadership.
So then in the end, like when you were actually filling out your activity section, were you able to include everything, or did you have to like let go of some things? How did you actually decide what to keep, what not to keep?
So there's a lot of places where you can put the activities that you've done. Like it's not just obviously those 10 activities are like the most important that you want to highlight. But at the same time, you can't repeat it in your common app. If you do end up talking about some activity in your common app, you don't want that to overlap. There's also an additional information section below the activities, which is 650 words. So you can write all of the things that you've done besides that. So there was a lot of places to put all the things that I've done. I didn't feel like there was not enough space, but obviously talking with the college counseling department and all, I had to figure out which activities are most important to put in those specific 10 because that's what the college admissions officers looks at first.
You mentioned that you can't have any overlap between your 10, the common app, like the essay itself. So I was just wondering, so you did say that you end up writing your essay about your community service project, right? And so did you not put that in your activities list, or how do you approach that? Or when you were talking about it in your essay, were you looking at it from a different angle?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't put that in my activity section. For my social engagement, I showcased it through my Common App essay, and then the other social projects that I did, I put that in the activities section. So I had enough that I
Okay.
could cover social initiatives in the activities section as well separately.
I guess this moves us right into the essay and application process bit of the interview. What was the entire application process like for you? And did you have to enlist external counselors, or was school enough? Or how did you approach it?
School was not enough. It was definitely very helpful. I did have an external counselor just because they have a little more like time with you, more like personal time for the ideation process, like thinking of ideas for your essays, etc. But a lot of the times people don't prefer external counselors because it's like at some point it becomes too many cooks, and like
Right,
school and
right.
external counselors, they do have like different perspectives on many things. And for a lot of those things, I took school's advice itself because it's whatever makes sense the most to you. You know, like in the end, at the end of the day, it's your application. So jeopardize it based on what one person is saying.
What actually led you to pick to like applying specifically to the US over UK, Canada, and all these other countries?
I've always wanted to go to the US. It's like for numerous reasons. Number one being I was born there, my sister's there, so that was like a more
Okay.
personal reason for me wanting to go there. But also, it's more flexible than the UK. If I do want to explore other options in the future, it's very easy to switch majors in the US. It's very simple to follow other subjects and do whatever you want, basically.
Next, I think a big part is letters of recommendation. How many do you actually end up submitting? How did you pick which teachers to give, like your counselor LOR and stuff, and even the
Yeah.
external ones? How do you choose? And when you did approach them, how did you approach them? Like, did you say, could you just write me a letter of recommendation, or did you like give them a little bit of a guide on what you kind of want them to write, or like how do you actually go about the entire thing?
For the Teacher recommendations, the school has a like really good system of doing it. You fill out these teacher recommendation forms for each teacher that you want, and these are sort of based on like which teachers you think would highlight the best aspects of you. The college counseling department really helps you with this. Like, it's not always based upon which teacher you think likes you the most, but maybe more so which subject would be an important subject to have a recommendation in, right? And all the teachers are trained already on how to write a good recommendation, so all you need to do is send them that teacher recommendation form, which is sort of like a brag sheet with all your accomplishments on it and all of the things that you've done in that subject, and how you've pursued that subject actively in and out of class. And that really helps them go about writing it. For the external recommendations, it shouldn't be too difficult if you've done any work with someone and if you're close with someone outside of school. Could be academic, it could be creative, it could be anything. I got mine from one was from an two, I think both were from my mentor at my internships. And so they wrote me really nice letters of recommendation. Obviously, I had to help them with the brag sheet. As you do, you provide a sheet with all your things.
The last question has to be about the essays. A, the Common App essays, and also B, the Uchicago essays that Uchicago is infamous for. And how did you approach both? And like, when did you start writing them? How do you come up with ideas? Things like that.
The Common App essay took a long time. I actually had 5 different ideas, not drafts. That's sort of like highlighting the important parts of yourself and showcasing who you are, what's important to you and what you value, what values you have, and sort of like showing them, but not like explicitly stating them in your Common App essay. And that just comes with a lot of writing down what's important to you on a piece of paper, trying to extrapolate that, because you can find out a lot about yourself just by writing down a couple of key moments in your life. With respect to the Uchicago essays, those took a long time compared to other essays. Trying to write about something quirky that hasn't been done before. Obviously, that's not the most important thing, being like new and quirky, not all the time. Even just having something that's very well known, but taking a new perspective, or something that opens the admissions officer's eyes and says like, yeah, I want this kid in my university. So
Do you remember what your prompt was for Uchicago? What you wrote about?
the prompt I picked was name 2 things that undo each other and why they're both necessary. For that, I wrote about the sensations of pain and pleasure and how they've evolved over time. Spoke about how pain and pleasure are both essential to living, because in the olden days, you know that your hand's on fire by pain, and you know that you're full from food with the sensation of pleasure. And I spoke
Right.
about how that interacts with my daily life. Even the Why You Chicago essay, since both essays have no limit, I wrote about 1,000 words for each. So that became the Why You Chicago essay was much longer than other why essays from other universities. Yeah, you really have to like find points as to why you like the university.
If you had to go back to yourself in ninth grade and have had to give yourself any advice, or to anyone else in your position, what would that be?
The advice I would give myself is that just like put effort in every day. That would like, because it helps you a lot to not compound your work over time. So just put that little bit of effort and don't procrastinate. It really helps in the long run, especially with submissions in IB. If you follow this, you'll be perfectly fine. And IB is difficult, but it's very doable if you put in effort and you have a lot of peers alongside you. So you can use them to have fun and to help you whenever you need it.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, and it was very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me.